Okay, guys, what is up? This is Brandon from 13 Market Moves, and we have Chipotle, the Burrito King wonder that keeps going up and never comes down, right? What's a burrito company to do? Well, we're going to talk about CMG Q4 earnings. The question I want to ask is, Chipotle has been a darling on the Wall Street, right? And it has really great buybacks, and they're pretty good food, overpriced but pretty good food, and they've overcome some health scares and basically it's trading at all-time highs. So, they seem to be always getting a pass. It seems to be one of those cult stock like Tesla that only goes up whenever we look at it. So we want to do some analysis, but ask the question here. Will the goodwill from hype that they created regarding how their technology is going to overcome and streamline their operational process and drive earnings per share and revenues higher and raising prices amid the pandemic on people and customers, and there is a declining customer base. I don't think that Chipotle has completely recovered from their bacteria scare from their foods, but regardless, we find the stock at an all-time high at this nosebleed levels, and the question is it still bullish? Are we expecting this to go to the moon? Let's find out. Our research points to the following. Okay, stay tuned. So what we want to do is look at the earnings history. And that earnings history that we look at is the following. In the Q3 right here, we basically always have the stock. It doesn't like blow away numbers, right? I mean, revenues and everything looks fine. They always put a bend on their technology, how they keep punting out that their technology and their new marketing and their new CEO's plan is working, and that they're revitalizing their brand, they're redesigning their stores. And so they get a pass, and then they always bring this in. Oh, by the way, we're going to increase our buyback. And then what happens? The stock maybe drops a little bit and just goes to the moon. And that's been happening. Damn it. It's not going to happen this time. Okay. And part of that reason is it is really at historical all-time highs, basically just defying any type of metrics at this point. And Chipotle has a history of pulling back near all-time highs. So for me, any of these EPSs or revenues is immaterial unless they miss badly. Okay, it basically depends on can their continued hype about their technology and their store revitalization and raising prices amid the pandemic, which I think is a bad idea, is not going to work this time. Even if they say they're going to buy every single shares float out there, people are going to be looking at the earnings report and they're going to be looking to sell. Okay, now it doesn't mean it's going to gap down significantly, but it might. If they miss and crap the bed, of course it's going to follow that. Okay, but what I'm saying is that their EPS really doesn't matter unless they miss. Okay, so having gotten that out of the way, let's look at and review the daily macro earnings picture. Okay, in October 21st in Q3, they beat estimates. Everything was rosy. Initially, the shares fell. Okay, so basically opened and sold off, and then it rallied and closed near the top of the day. And that rally continued for 2 days. And this stock has a heinous capability of doing something like this, especially if they beat on their earnings. Okay, and it seems like it falls on a lower volume. You got to be careful for that counter trend rally, but it still gives you an opportunity short. Okay. And then after 2 days, it sold off. Okay, after people looked at it and said, well, they're just talking about earnings and they're talking about buybacks. I mean, what kind of growth is that? Their growth is actually slowing down. Q2, they beat estimates, but shares fell. They beat and everything was rosy. But remember, we're just coming out of, this is still July, right? In the heat of what's going to happen with this pandemic. And it sold off for 5.4%, but rallied again. Again, 2 days. Okay, 2 days is magic number. We just got to decipher what it's going to do in those 2 days. The only time that it really gapped up, they missed on earnings and everything else, but this was smack dab in the middle of pandemic. People didn't know if people were still going out and buying Chipotle, the overpriced burrito. It's good though. I like it, but when you go in there, stores usually empty. Most restaurants are these days, and it popped 17%. This was like sigh of relief rally. Okay, it was just coincident to the fact that Chipotle just sold off in the entire month of February and March. Now let's look at the Q4 in question. February 4, 2020, they beat guidance and they beat earnings and guidance was in line. Shares fell initially, again, for 2 days, and then it bottomed and then ran up. Okay, 2 days is the magic number here. And you'll find out that Chipotle has a tendency to sell off after earnings, especially near all-time highs. Okay, but remember, 2 days is the magic number. Okay, if it goes up for 2 days, then short after 2 days, and you'll get about 5 days of decline, as we will see going forward. Moving right along, let's go forward. Okay, instead of me babbling here, let's look at the McDonald's, because I want to compare this McDonald's to as an industry bellwether for what's going on. Look at this RSI, just completely declined. It's a mess, right? They reported earnings on the 27th and before the market, and basically it just crapped down, right? 212 to 217, and just sold off and just recovered a little bit today. But just like Chipotle, it just had kind of this lackluster volume. It just kind of some days were higher buy volume and sell volume, and then as they reported earnings, volume increased, and now it's stabilizing again. Just like Chipotle, the MACD right here looked bullish right before their earnings release. So what I'm saying is this. McDonald's missed. Their EPS and revenues missed, and they guided in line, and they basically further warned that there's some deteriorating consumer patronage. They're just not growing at all. I mean, they pretty much hit maximum velocity in terms of growth right now. And I think that'll translate into the burrito wonder Chipotle. Okay. So, where is it? Okay. So here's the CMG's daily technical picture. Sorry about that little confusion. We have all-time high way back in September, and that was the RSI. We hit higher all-time highs, and it was a lower RSI, and we hit yet another a little bit slightly higher. This is stalling. This line is basically saying, hey, it might pop a little higher, maybe running into earnings tomorrow because they report earnings after hours. But we think that it's hitting the top end of the range, and the RSI is declining. You got to pay attention to that. I said, look at the volume. It's just there's some buy volumes, but it's been flat to down, just like McDonald's was. And this MACD signature looks very similar to McDonald's before they reported earnings, and it's sold off. And we think the same thing's going to happen. The other thing to note is that the CCI was overbought, and it just basically crossed into corrective territory. As long as it doesn't pop over there, we think there's more room to run down. So I love to use the CCI as a guidance for what's going to happen to the stock. So moving right along, let's look at the weekly. Weekly's corroborating what we see on the daily. Look at diverging RSI, all-time highs trading, and it's basically hitting near the top of the Bollinger Band. Every time it pokes through or touches that, we get a little sell-off. We get a little sell-off. We get a little sell-off, right? Get the picture? Okay. Even though MACD is sort of bullish, I mean, this is not at all bullish at all. It's losing momentum. Look at this histogram. I mean, it's just nothing. It's not healthy like this here when they were just going to the moon at this point, right? And CCI, it's still overbought, but it's now beginning to decline. The thing that's going to push it below this 100 level is the earnings report, guys. Pay attention to this. All right, so basically, I want to point your attention to this bad boy right here. We peaked. This is the PBJ, which is Invesco's Food and Beverage ETF. Tracks everything, right? Guess what happened? Back in January, we topped, okay? This is kind of the climax top that I'm talking about, and it's been selling off. Now, we did find some support at the midline of the Bollinger Band, but, we think this is going to continue, maybe do that. Today was a pretty bullish day, as you can remember. But as far as the food and beverage industry is concerned, this is going to be I think, the quarter where a lot of corrective actions are going to take place, especially for the king of the burrito, Chipotle. Okay, really quick, I want to go over the earnings on Q3 October 21st. Again, remember I said this is a 2-day wonder, right? They gapped down, looked like it was going to go sell off forever, but it had a good range. I mean, it basically tested the top of the range at 1320-ish and then went to 1320 to 1250. Okay, that's a good range. But the thing was, this was occurring in a lower volume, and towards the end of the day, the volume increased, and so it closed higher for the day. This is the reason why I call it 2-day wonder is if you waited 1 to 2 days and let this rally and let it stall out, and then get in for the 5 days of decline, you would have made bank on this. Okay, so even if it gaps down, be prepared to sell within the first 2 hours or less, maybe even 30 minutes, because this move was pretty quick to the downside, and then it'll release to the upside. And if it's doing it on lower volume, just wait your turn. See how it's basically stalling out right at these levels of the lower end, and it stalls out. And if it can't get any higher than the previous day's earnings release day's candle, and it's been pretty bullish, then you look for a sell-off, okay? Remember that. It's a little tricky, but you can do it. You can do it! Just like that movie Waterboy, right? Anyways, here's Q2, July 22nd. They reported earnings after hours. They beat EPS and revenues, but stock was near 6-month highs. Okay, all-time highs. Guess what happens? Okay, they reported good earnings, right? So they opened, and then they ran up, and then they stalled out. Could not get past the previous day's highs, right? That's the key with the stock. If it runs up higher or lower, and if it can't break below previous day's highs or lows, the reverse is going to happen. So basically, it sells off for 2 days. Awesome range, okay? You could have made bank, but you got to be careful. You cannot get sucked into this and get fooled because this Burrito King is crafty, okay? And this is my arch nemesis. I love to short the CMG, but it is tricky. But if you nail it, it's nirvana. Okay, Q1, CMG on April 21st, they beat, okay? It gets beaten up. It was beaten up going into earnings, and then it missed EPS and revenues, but got a pass. Why? Because of this thing right here, okay? And everybody was surprised that they actually posted a profit, and guess what? It just ran to the moon, right? But that's a very rare thing. Now they need to show us all of this hype, the new CEO, the store redesign, price hikes, which I think is going to hurt them, is going to give them earnings worthy of popping even higher than all-time historical highs right now. So Q4, February 4, 2020, okay, they did a massive pop and drop. They reported good, beat it, EPS and revenues, but they had high expectations, near all-time highs again. Remember that? All-time highs, even if it pops, wait for it to stall, okay? Okay, when it stalls and it can't go anywhere, it's worth it. You know where you're wrong, right? If it keeps going up higher, just cover and just say you're wrong and Brandon was wrong. I don't care. I can leave it that. I could put up with your nasty comments. No, I like good comments too, but I'm just telling you that if you can identify this pop and a drop, this was money in the bank, okay? So how did it behave in 2019 for Q4? Well, you know, they beat earnings after hours, beat guidance, and store openings exceeded expectations, right? But they were not trading at all-time highs, right? So what does it do? It gaps up and just runs, okay? It was a gap and go, and you'll know that it was a gap and go, although it could have fooled you because it opened here and ran all the way up, and then you would have went, oh crap, it's selling off. Well, you could have made some money right here, but if you would have held, then the next day it might have just teased with you, and then it would have just kind of stalled out. Right? Most of you are seasoned enough where you could see the writing in the wall and get out, right? But really, at this point, you should have gone long, okay? But that's the only time that you should have because it wasn't trading at all-time highs. And then Q4, February 6, 2018, check this out, man. I mean, reports earning after hours, beats earnings, revenues in line, guides lower. And guess what? When you do that, you get a 62 range of 1, 2, 3. You gap down, you just short the pops. And then you just basically could have day traded this all, you know, in and out, or just carry it, you know. You don't have to overtrade to make a lot of money. All right, so Q4, February 2nd, 2017, same thing. They beat earnings. They missed the revenues, but they guided higher and sounded really optimistic. More stores are opening. They said that they'd be, coming out of that whole bacteria scare. I don't know if you guys remember that. And what? Buybacks. And, Wall Street is addicted to buybacks. So when they announced that, it popped initially, but that wasn't enough, man. Fact is, they miss their revenues eventually. When they miss anything, if it pops, that's a gift because you just short the top, and then day one and day two, boom, you made lots of money. You're happy, and everyone's happy. Okay, so here's the key takeaways. Okay, with all kidding aside, highly touted stock technology that CMG supposedly employs. It's just nothing more than a burrito fast food restaurant that charges you arm and a leg. They're raising prices to offset declining consumer count and brand revitalization, and have earned some goodwill along with buybacks. But I think this stops here. I mean, this is at nosebleed levels, and technically it is stretched. Okay, it needs a pullback. It needs like $120 to $150 pullback. But I think on day one we will probably get a good range, somewhere between 38 to 52 point ranges, okay, maybe higher, okay, but I'm being conservative here, okay. The stock is trading near all-time highs. I just hopefully showed you historically at all-time highs. Chipotle basically will pull back. Okay, expect profit taking regardless of good earnings or whatever they try to put a lipstick on that pig. If the stock is trading near all-time lows, expect a relief rally, but that's not where we are, right? This is a stock that's bought heavily as a buyback hype continues. And so the only caveat is because there is that Wall Street crowd, that's basically trying to do short squeezes, except this stock is not heavily shorted anymore. It used to be, okay? So this is ripe for shorting, follows closely in behavior to McDonald's. McDonald's just crapped the bed, which is an industry bellwether. And also PBJ ETF tracking ETF has peaked, okay, and it's selling off. And that's telling us something. So we need to be a little on guard. Like I said, Chipotle is a little tricky to trade, okay? Don't just jump right in and think that it's going to go to the moon if it pops, okay? Look for the stall, okay? Especially if they missed earnings. That's a clue, okay? CMG is trading at nosebleed valuations, commensurate with the fact that heavy stock buyback has floated this stock valuation, okay? But that heavy stock buyback, will it work this time? Earnings expectations are sky high, and Q4 is traditionally privy to earnings misses, okay? COVID impact on the business, I think it's going to start rearing its ugly head now, okay? So, short the crap out of the pop if we get a pop, if we're so blessed. If it gaps down, okay, you gotta basically jump in, but understand that this thing has a nasty habit of, when gapping down, reversing for a day or two and then giving you a great entry on day two. So maybe around Thursday, okay? Just be careful. Now, if there's heavy volume, you can tell by pre-market action, just let it be your guide. If you're wrong and you held it and it rallies for 2 days, guess what? That's your fault. So if you didn't get out, maybe you can hold on to it and it'll come down. But anyways, I hope this helped. If you want to learn about all of the things that I've talked about, if you want to learn about the strike prices, what kind of puts to buy or whatever, and if you're new to the forum, please click the link below, schedule a 20-minute consultation with our senior traders, and let's rock this. Let's make some money. Okay, thanks for listening. Let's roll.